All right, all right, all right. We're going to learn today. So, today I'm thinking about and wanting to talk about how self discovery is the meaning of life. We're always trying to find meaning in life and trying to figure out what is my purpose? Why am I here? Well, a lot of people, and people who are interested in what I have to say, um, watching these videos, those people, you guys, you think about those stuff because the reason you subscribe and you relate to what I say is because you're also on a journey of self discovery. And being on that journey is not an easy, it's not an easy, it's not an easy thing, which is why a lot of people leave this earth without ever figuring out who they are or why they're here. There's a lot of distractions in life that we have, things like your job, things like your family, things like um, the life you lead. These things end up distracting you from yourself because you're so busy. You're going from one thing to another. You wake up, you go to the gym, you go to work, you come back from work, you have kids, you have to cook. Even if you don't have kids, there's still other things like, you have a relationship, or you watch series after and veg out on the couch because of such a hard day. All of those things are distracting you from yourself, so it puts you off course in this journey of self-discovery, which is what life is meant to be. That is the meaning of life. That is the whole point. The whole point that we're here is to be awake and figure out what was my what was my agreement with the higher power before coming here. Because we're spirits having a human experience. It's just that there's so many humans that are so loud in, saying that this is how life should be. They're so loud in distracting you through religion, through, politics, through corporate, capitalism. All of these things are distractions from figuring out who you're meant to be and why you're here. So, not to digress too far, but the most important thing in life is firstly self discovery. And how do you do that? So, you first need to find out what are your values? What are the things that you like, are your morals that are not dictated to you? You don't do them only because someone is watching. What are your core values? And what are the things that if someone were to say you need to change this, you would be reluctant to do because they are your core values. So finding out what is that. So for me, my core values is respect, integrity, character, and honor. Those things for me, like, keep me grounded. So when there are times where people want me to question my morals, I go back to, was I in line with my values when I did something? And when I feel like I've strayed, then I know how to come back home. Another thing that is important is to have passions. Find out what you're passionate about. I mean, if you're not passionate about your job, find something that is meaningful, that will make you have passion. So for me, um, my job does not make me passionate. I'm not passionate about it. Like, it's it's not that I hate it, right? It's just that it is what it is. It's my job. But what I'm passionate about is changing people's lives. It's teaching people, it's psychology, it's writing. So, what I've done is, even in my job, I've created a space at work where I can pursue those interests. So I've helped with employee well being because my passion is psychology. Um, I've hosted events because my passion is teaching. So find ways to incorporate your passions into your daily life. So I'm also a writer, so I write on a regular basis. And, like I said, I'm a teacher, so I do these videos on a regular basis. So find ways where you can incorporate your passions on a daily basis. And how do you figure out what your passions are? You first make a list of all the things that you enjoy. I'm a Virgo, so me and lists are like this. Anytime I'm going to give you advice, definitely in that advice, it's going to be something about a plan, something about a list, definitely. Anyways, so make a list of the things that you enjoy, um, from the smallest thing to the largest thing. And once you've made that list, figure out what is something that you feel aligned to. Another thing that helped me was going back to my childhood and thinking, what were the things that in my spare time I was doing as a kid? I was just aligned to. So for me, it was I would scribble on pages and pages way before I even knew how to write. I would be playing puzzles, I would read books, you know, I would, even when I was a bit older, I would, teach. I always like to have my ruler and I'd stick something, pages on my wardrobe to make it like it's a classroom board, and I'd teach. And even when I was in primary school, I think I was in high school, early high school, and my niece, not niece, my cousin was in primary school and she was struggling with maths, and I taught her like I was a teacher. I would create, tests so that she can write them and I would mark them. So I spent a lot of time. I just want to double check that this thing is on actually. Okay, we're good. We're live. Sometimes I have anxiety about these things. So I would I would teach her. And when I went back and I thought in my head, okay, what are the things that I aligned with? Those are the things. And when once I started incorporating those on my daily life and my daily habits, and finding ways to give back and be of service, like writing and publishing my book. My book is being published. It's 2 days left until it's available, so I'm very excited. But once you can do those things and have excitement and have passion, and then if you can even in turn make those passions something that you can bring out to the world, that will make you feel fulfilled. That will make you feel like, you have purpose. There's something you're doing here. There's something that you're meant you're meant to be someone, right? I think we all spend so much time trying not to be seen, trying not to be heard, trying not to, you know, disrupt the status quo, that you lose track of who you are and who you're always meant to be. So find your purpose basically. Your passions are a gateway to your purpose. And like I said, the best way to finding that purpose, go back to your childhood, make that happiness list. And also, there's another thing I read where they say, picture your day if you were not working. Picture your day. What would it look like? So for me, I'd wake up, go to the gym, then come back, do these videos, then write, then chill and maybe read a book, um, then maybe go out, have some lunch or whatever. So if I can picture that as my day, and that would be my daily routine without work, that also leads you to your purpose. Because if you can see what it is you'd be doing instead, then, or maybe you do love your job, that's great. Then you are a step closer to finding your purpose, because you already are in a place where what you're passionate about is what you do. But figuring out that is the fun part. it should be fun, because if you don't know, you have the goal and the, you know, the privilege to find out. Okay, creating a meaningful life. So I basically touched on this anyway, because once you find your passion, you find your purpose. Once you find your purpose, you have a meaningful life. But the meaningful life comes when you are of service. Because you can have passions that you keep to yourself, like me writing, I've always been writing. Me teaching like this, I've always been teaching, but I've been doing it in a small scale. The people around me, my friends, my family, it was in a small scale. But now I'm basically doing it on a bigger scale, because now I am producing and, you know, um, doing these videos for public consumption. So find a way to make your passions, to expand them, to be of service to the people around you, to your community. Like I'm doing community service, I'm doing self awareness talks, I'm spreading myself as big as I can. And that makes you have more meaningful life, because then you are doing basically the best you possibly can as a human being. And I say human being because the best you possibly can as a human is what you're doing now. But the best you can possibly do as a human being is to fulfill your spirit, to make sure that you are in line with what you're meant to be doing here. And if you are not in line, you're in a state of depression, you're in states of anxiety. All of those things are meant to indicate that um, you are not using energy to be living. You're not doing everything you possibly can in this life. And the reason why you're in depression is because your body and your mind is telling you, find out who you are, find out what your passions are, find out who you're meant to be. And the reason why you feel like you're unfulfilled is because your body and your mind is telling you that. This is an indicator. We use mental illness as such a bad thing, but it's something that is an indicator to say, look further here. You're missing something here. You need to do better here. So find a meaningful life, right? And then in general, self discovery has to go hand in hand with personal growth and development. You have to be seeking to be better every day. Yes, there are going to be months, days, weeks where you don't have it all together. It doesn't mean that, even with myself, it doesn't mean that now that I know what my purpose is, now that I know that um, what I'm doing here, now that I know, how I'm going to share and be of service, it doesn't mean that I'm not ever going to be sad. It doesn't mean I'm not ever going to be in a state of depression or have anxiety. It means that when I am in those places, what brings me out of that is my meaning, is my purpose, is, you know, these things that I do to try to have a fulfilled life. I always say that imagine at the end of this life, you get to the end, and then they show you a video of what your life could have been versus a video of how your life is. And what gets me out of depressive states, anxiety states, is that I think I want to make sure that the video of how my life is or was is as close to what it could have been as possible. Imagine you're supposed to live a life like Beyonce. You were supposed to be at the peak of your career, at the peak of your talents, at the peak of everything. And then you are here living a life like Kanye, not getting in alignments, almost getting there, but not fully being the person you're meant to be. Imagine that's you. That would be heartbreaking. You were supposed to be Beyonce, and you're out here being Kanye. No shade to Kanye, I love him so much, but you know, he's wilding out because he's not living in his purpose, not fully. And when you're not fully in your purpose, you're in a state of depression, you self sabotage, you, you know, you're not good with your relationships, you don't maintain relationships well. And that all comes to, you know, how you create a meaningful life. And that brings me to the next point of maintaining and enhancing your relationships. You need to find community. You know, it is hard. I'm finding it difficult to have community, but I'm getting better at it. But it's difficult when you're, you know, in a state of depression and anxiety to find community, because all you want to do is be by yourself, not have to explain to people why you're feeling whatever you're feeling. And you know, it's easier to be alone than to have community, because when you have community, you have to, you know, you basically have to keep in mind that there's these people that you need to keep in touch with, right? And sometimes when you're in a state of like deep depression, you don't want to keep in touch with anyone because you don't have the energy to. And sometimes people don't understand that. So then you end up in a state where you don't have relationships with people. You know, I see that a lot with my dad. Like, he's in such a state of depression that even his family, like, he doesn't keep in touch with anyone other than the people in this house. And even then, you know, you'd never have deep conversations about life. So it's very sad to see, you know, someone go through that. And I think it is important to force yourself, even when you feel like you can't. It's important for you to maintain those relationships. So, yeah, that helps with having a meaningful life, because you have people who support you, you have people who are there for you when you're feeling down, you know, you have people who are there for you when you're feeling good and you're feeling up, when city girls are up, you know. So, yeah, it enhances your life, basically. Um, yeah, so those are the main things for self-discovery. It's understanding what your values are, finding your passions, finding your purpose, creating that meaningful life by incorporating your passions on a daily basis, having a proper plan of personal growth and development, and then finally enhancing your relationships. But I just want to speak more on the personal growth and development part. That is like the core of all of this, because you need to, on a daily basis, find things that help you grow and not stay stagnant in this comfort zone. And the best way to do that is these personal help books, the podcasts, the gymming, the eating well, the, you know, the boring stuff, the 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 monotonous day-to-day stuff. That also helps you get exposed to people that are like-minded, get education on how to better manage your life. And even if it also means seeking help, seeking professional psychologists, you know, psychiatrists, whatever it is that you need to get yourself out of the state of where you are in a comfort zone, that is the best way to first, it's the best starting point, because you're first getting your mindset right, so that when you do find your passions and you do find your purpose, you have a strong mindset to continue to push through. Because once you find your purpose, that's a lot of pressure. And it's not easy to know what you're here for, because that means now you have the burden of having to figure out how you get to where you need to go. And that is difficult. Like, I've seen what my purpose is. It is so big and so scary that it has put me in a state of of depression recently. Like, recently I've been going through, a dark time, all because I know exactly what I'm here for. I know exactly what I'm meant to do. I'm in total alignment with that. But it's been difficult to, you know, get there because it's hard work. It's not easy. So, but the mindset part is what really has set me, straight, or what's helped me get through where I am right now. So, if you don't know where to start with personal growth, help books, psychology stuff, these videos I share, whatever it is that helps you would be a great place to start. Then you find your values, then you find your passions, you find your meaning of life, you find your purpose, you find a way to have to be of service, and then you enhance your relationships. So, yeah, the meaning of life is self-discovery, and I wish you all the luck with figuring that out. It's taken me 30 years to figure it out, and I hope it takes you less time. I've just been working at it for a long time, and now I finally know how to package it and share this knowledge, and I've put it in my mind such that it's easier to explain to people. And I just hope that this helps you and you found what you needed from this video. And best of luck with figuring out the rest. Love and light.